Lexi was my best friend since 3rd grade. We did everything together. We didn't have any secrets. That changed senior year. I started dating John, the captain of the baseball team and one of the 5 hottest guys at our school. John was amazing, and I felt so lucky that he liked me. The only problem was that he wanted to keep our relationship a secret until after graduation. His family was super religious, and he'd get in trouble if his parents found out about us. So I didn't tell a soul, not even Lexi. That was the first secret I kept from her. John and I secretly dated for months. He'd ignore me in public, but act really affectionate when we were alone. He made all these promises about the future, acting as if we were destined to be together forever. And then, one day, I was behind the school to help set up for our spring formal when I caught Lexi with John. I was furious. I should have been furious at John, but I was so in love with him that all my anger went straight toward Lexi. She stole my boyfriend. So the next day I confronted her in the hallway before school, called her some terrible names. She acted shocked. Why are you saying all that? Because you're a slut. Things escalated really fast. One second we were standing far apart and shouting at each other. The next second she was on top of me. It was a genuine catfight. She clawed at me. I pulled her hair. We both screamed in each other's faces. A group of our classmates had to pull us apart. It was so embarrassing, but I felt too angry to get embarrassed. We both ended up in the principal's office. He wasn't there yet, so we had to wait outside his door. Neither of us said anything until I finally broke the silence. I'm dating John. You need to stay away from him. You're dating John? Yeah, right. We finally started talking about it. And it didn't take long to come to the same realization. John was playing us both. He was dating both of us, and because he swore us to secrecy, the other didn't know. Well, we knew now. John was an asshole, and he'd almost destroyed our friendship. Lexi and I hugged it out. We cried. And when the principal finally came, we told him that we were just rehearsing for a play. We weren't really fighting. He believed us and let us leave. We were supposed to go back to class, but we decided to ditch the rest of school. It was time to teach John a lesson. We started by telling each other everything that John said. It felt great to have everything out in the open, though it was frustrating to know that we fell for the exact same lies and empty promises. Most of what he told us was word for word the same. Then we went on our phones to look for anything that we could use against him. We had some flirty texts, and even though he made us both promise to never take photos of him, we both secretly did. So yeah, we had enough evidence against him. Now we needed to figure out how to use it. We thought about putting it all up on a slideshow during homecoming, but Lexi nixed that idea. It would embarrass us just as much as him. Besides, he wouldn't even be there. His parents never let him go to school dances. That made me think of the perfect plan. We'd expose him to his religious parents. It was the best way to hit him where it hurt. We didn't know exactly how yet, but we'd figure it out. That night, John snuck over to my house. He'd heard about my catfight with Lexi and assumed that we discovered the truth. I gave him the same excuse that we gave the principal, and he fell for it. And then I got really flirty and asked about his plans for the weekend. I have to give a speech at my church. It'll end at 4, and then I can head over afterward.
Oh, what's the speech about?
The importance of abstinence. I forced myself not to laugh. It was our last time. Felt great, too. No regrets. Especially since I secretly recorded his moaning on my phone. After he left, I called Lexi and told her to meet me on Saturday at John's church. Lexi distracted the church's IT guy while I swapped out John's PowerPoint for something a little less appropriate. Then we waited outside the church until John arrived. As he was getting ready for his speech, we went inside and took our seats in the back. He's Lutheran, so the event was a very serious affair. Everyone was dressed up and looking somber. The pastor, John's uncle, came out and introduced him. When John got behind the pulpit, he saw us in the crowd. It felt great to watch him flinch. I'm pretty sure that he expected us to do something, but it was too late to back out now. He started his speech, talking about the importance of living a moral life. Then, he switched on his PowerPoint. The first image was him in his birthday suit. He immediately tried to switch off the projector, but since Lexi took the IT guy's controller, she switched to the next image. And the next, and the next. The entire church went silent, outside of John's mumbled excuses. He kept saying that the photos weren't him, it was AI, and that he had no idea what was going on. Then, he ran out of words and let out a long, hopeless moan. That was the perfect transition to switch to the last slide, which had that audio of his same moan, different context. When his audio shifted to him loudly screaming, "Oh, Jesus!" he ran out of the church as fast as he could. Lexi and I stayed in our seats, enjoying the rest of the show. The pastor awkwardly stood back up and announced that John's speech was canceled. We never got in trouble for what we did. I assume that the church didn't want to mention the speech ever again. And when we saw John at school on Monday, he ran in the other direction. Lexi and I are best friends again. No more secrets. We're both still single, too. Life's too short to waste any time on guys like John.
I was working at a nice restaurant, making pretty good money, when my dad got sick. He needed a full-time caregiver, and he didn't have any money saved. I was forced to quit my job and move back in with him. It was tough for me, but I had to do it. Dad needed me, and I wanted to spend as much time with him as possible before he passed. Living in my childhood home felt pretty surreal, though. The neighborhood had gone downhill since I left, and all the neighbors I grew up with had moved on. The only person I recognized was my across-the-street neighbor, Jack. Jack and I grew up together, but we were never close. He was a few years younger than me, and I always saw him as this tag-along kid that wouldn't stop following us around. Now that he was an adult, he was actually kind of handsome. A little chubby like a lot of people in our area, but still handsome. Because I had to stay near my dad all the time, I ended up seeing Jack a lot. He worked from home, and he invited himself over a lot. He always brought food for my dad, but that was just an excuse to see me. When he told me he had a crush on me since elementary school, I wasn't surprised. I always knew that I'm like a trophy to any guy. And for a while there, I actually considered going out on a date. It's not like I had any other prospects. I changed my mind when he started getting a little too intense, though. He gave me flowers he'd obviously picked from someone else's yard. He wrote me terrible love poems, and he asked if he could tattoo my name in his arm. Just crazy stuff. I tried to be blunt with him, but he wouldn't let up. And when I told him that I'd rather focus on helping my dad get better, he freaked out and said that my dad had no right to get in the way of true love. What was I supposed to say to that? My dad had cancer. I started avoiding him at all costs. I never answered the door when he arrived unannounced, and when I went for errands, I literally ran to my car so he couldn't stop me. Then one day, I came back from the grocery store to find Jack waiting for me in the living room. He said that my dad had let him inside. That was a complete lie. My dad couldn't even leave his bed.
Get the hell out of my house! Stay away from me!
He stood up and got really close to my face. You're gonna regret treating me like this after your dad's gone. He stormed out of there before I could say anything. I didn't see him for the next week. Dad took a turn for the worse and I had to call an actual nurse. It felt like this was it. I was holding his hand when he died. Worst moment of my life. But I'm very glad I got to be with him at the end. The nurse helped me clear out the machinery in the hospital bed. Before she left, she pulled me aside with an angry look on her face. She held up a bottle of Dad's pills. He took a ton of pills, but these were the ones I had to give him 3 times a day. They kept his liver going. Care to explain yourself? I had no clue what she was talking about. She explained that the pills had been swapped with Tic Tacs. She thought I'd purposely stopped giving him his meds to speed up his death, but I knew the truth. Jack switched the pills when he was in our house. He killed my father. I told her that, but she didn't believe me. She never met Jack. Don't worry, I won't report you. I know how hard it is to watch a loved one fade away. She left after that, still thinking I did this to my own father. That made my shock and anger even worse. I knew that big picture. Cancer killed my father, not Jack. But Jack robbed me of days, maybe weeks with him. He was a monster, and I needed to make him pay. I didn't see him until the funeral. Of course he showed up, and of course he cried more than I did. God, I hated him so much. He didn't talk to me during the service, but afterwards, he asked if we could speak in private. He took me deeper into the cemetery behind the church. He kept wiping his eyes, making sure I saw how sad he was. We stopped near an open grave. No one was around to hear us. I'm so sorry for your loss, but now that you have more free time, want to go bowling with me? It was bad enough he was asking me out at a funeral, but bowling? I wouldn't go bowling if my life depended on it. I know you switched his pills. He started sputtering. He tried to deny it, saying he had no idea what I was talking about. I just stared at him as he went on and on, sounding guiltier by the second. Finally, he gave up his excuses. He knew he'd been caught. Leela, I did it to help you. He was holding you back. I shoved him hard against the chest. He fell 6 feet and landed hard on the dirt. I looked down at him. It wasn't a big fall, but he landed wrong. His left foot was bent unnaturally to the side, broken at the ankle. He looked like he wanted to scream, but all that came out was a pitiful whimper. Goodbye, Jack. I turned and left him there. I'm not sure who found him, but someone got him out of there. He showed up at my front door that night wearing a cast. He brought 2 policemen with him. That's her. She left me to die. The officers didn't arrest me. They saw all the flowers stacked up behind me. They knew I'd just come back from a funeral. I invited them all inside, including Jack, and calmly explained why I pushed him. He was the one who got arrested. He's in jail now. It still doesn't make up for what he did to me, but it feels good. Stepchildren are the worst. I'm sure you've heard plenty of horror stories before, but trust me, no one has a worse experience with a stepson than me. His name was Logan. When I started dating his mother, Patricia, Logan had just turned 18. Patricia warned me beforehand that he was a little spoiled, but it was so much more than that. He made poor Patricia wait on him hand and foot. She cooked for him. She cleaned his disgusting room every day. She picked out his clothes in the morning. She literally ran his bath for him every night. Thank God she didn't have to wash him herself. The kid was 300 pounds of soft, helpless flab, constantly whining, constantly asking for snacks. Not once did I hear him say thank you, just give me now and more. Patricia's excuse was that Logan's father had died when he was 8, and she coddled him too much because of it. Well, I had to do something. Patricia moved in with me 2 years ago, and since Logan refused to get a job or go to college, he moved in too. Now that he was living under my house, he had to follow my rules. On day 1, I told him to pick up after himself and treat both Patricia and me with more respect. He couldn't do that. He just got right back to whining all the time and leaving trash everywhere. 2 days into his stay, I gathered up all the wrappers and fast food junk from the house and set it all on his bed. And you know what he did? He just left it there. He slept on his own trash until Patricia found out and cleaned it up for him. Months went by and he didn't change at all. No matter what I said, Patricia would undermine me and excuse his toxic behavior. It was causing a real strain in our relationship. Then one day, I came home from a long day of work to find him sitting on my couch, eating ice cream out of my mom's fine china. I told him to wash it carefully and put it back. He just glared at me as he ate the rest of the ice cream. Then he purposely dropped the bowl onto the floor.
You're not my father!
I've never been angrier. I had to leave the room before I punched him. I paced around for a while. Then I decided to change the password on my Wi-Fi. That made me feel better. Now he couldn't log into his video games or stream movies on his TV. 20 minutes later, he was in his room screaming for his mother. She wasn't home yet. When she got home, he was still screaming. I calmly showed her the shattered china on the tile and explained what had just happened.
But honey, he needs his Wi-Fi. Can't you think of something else?
Like what?
Positive reinforcement.
That kid had more than enough positive reinforcement. I told her I was going to kick Logan out if he doesn't clean up the china and apologize. She said she'd see what she could do, but I wasn't expecting a miracle. That night, he trudged into my office with his head hung low. Sorry about your stupid dish. Can I have my Wi-Fi now? That was easily the worst apology I ever heard. I told him no, of course. He threw a tantrum and stormed out. When I saw him the next morning, he acted completely different. He smiled at me and complimented my clothes. He gave me a genuine apology and even said that he'd make me breakfast. Just one night of no Wi-Fi had really changed him. At least that's what I thought. But when he gave me a stack of apology pancakes, I saw the smirk on his face, and I knew that he was up to something. Thank you, Logan, but I'm not going to eat that.
Oh, you have to. I made it myself.
That was the moment Patricia came downstairs. She immediately sided with Logan, still unable to see what a psycho he was. She told me to be a better man and eat what he gave me. I stood my ground, more certain than ever that he'd put something in my food. Patricia and I started arguing about it. Logan just watched us and smiled. I love Patricia a lot. I still do. But I was starting to think that the way she treated her son was a deal breaker in our relationship. No matter what happened, she would always support Logan over me.
Why don't you have some since he worked so hard to make it?
I slid the plate of pancakes away from me. Patricia took a long look at it. Then she looked at Logan. I could tell that even she had her doubts about what was in this food.
Logan, honey, I'm going to eat this now.
Logan squirmed a little. He obviously didn't want his mom to eat the pancakes, but he was unable to admit what he actually did to them.
Okay, gonna take a bite now.
He still didn't say anything, even though his expression looked like he wanted to scream for her to stop. She took her first uneasy bite. I could hear her gulp it down.
This is delicious, honey.
She took another bite, coughed a little, then another bite. It must have tasted terrible, but she kept eating, and Logan kept watching her with growing horror on his fat face. Then finally, Patricia pushed the plate away. She was coughing terribly now. I had to hit her on the back, which didn't help at all.
Logan, what the hell did you put in those? Logan, what the hell did you put in those? Nothing.
Patricia went to the hospital. She had her stomach pumped and had to get surgery on her throat. We didn't realize until afterwards that Logan had ground up my mom's broken bowl and sprinkled the shards in the pancake. The doctors figured it out. Patricia almost died and her son still wouldn't admit what he did. I was at her bedside in the hospital when she finally woke up from surgery. Logan sat on the other side of the room, staring into his lap. I told Patricia what the doctors told me about the broken shards of china. Then I waited for her response, silently praying that this would finally be the moment she did something about Logan. She still couldn't speak, so she wrote something on her whiteboard and showed it to Logan. It was a question. Did you do that? Logan crossed his arms petulantly.
Yeah, but it was totally an accident. I have no idea how it got in the pancakes.
Patricia's face was blank. She erased the whiteboard with her bedsheet and wrote something else. It's okay. I love you. That's when I broke up with her.
The summer of 2025 in Florida was a beast. The air was so thick with humidity you could practically chew it, and the thunderstorms that rolled through our upscale hotel in Naples were relentless. I'd been working at the Palms for about a year, a gig I took to pay the bills while I figured out what the hell I was doing with my life. At 24, I was the guy who cleaned the pool, mopped the lobby, and occasionally hauled luggage for rich guests who tipped like they were doing me a favor. But after 3 days of storms that tore through like a pissed-off ex, that pool was a goddamn disaster. I stood at the edge of it that morning, staring at the wreckage. Leaves, twigs, mulch, and clumps of dirt floated like a swamp had puked into the deep end. The water was murky, almost brown, and the smell was like wet earth and something faintly sour. I turned to my manager, Rick, a guy in his 40s with a permanent sunburn and a voice like he smoked 2 packs a day. Rick, man, this is way above my pay grade. We need to call Tony, the pool guy. This ain't my scene. Rick squinted at the pool, hands on his hips, like he was sizing up a minor inconvenience.
Nah, Jake, you got this. Just scoop it out with the net. It's not rocket science.
You serious? This looks like the Everglades after a hurricane. I'm not trained for this shit. He clapped me on the shoulder, that condescending move bosses do when they're about to screw you over.
You're a smart kid. Get it done. Guess they're gonna want to swim by noon.
And then he walked off, leaving me with a long pole, a net, and a simmering urge to quit. So I started scooping. For an hour, I dragged that net through the water, pulling out leaves and clumps of God knows what. My arms were burning, sweat was dripping into my eyes, and I was muttering curses under my breath. That's when she showed up. She was a vision, a 10 by 10. Her blonde hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she had this easy confidence, like she knew she was the hottest thing in a 50-mile radius. She stopped at the pool's edge, sunglasses perched on her nose, and tilted her head. Hey, is it swimmable yet? I froze mid-scoop, staring at her like she'd asked if she could drink the sludge. You see this? I gestured at the pool where a branch was literally floating like a dead fish. You really want to swim in that? She laughed, a light, unbothered sound, and shrugged. Fair point. I'll wait. I didn't mind. If I was stuck cleaning this cesspool, at least I had something nice to look at. We got to talking as I worked. Her name was Lauren, 26, from Chicago, down here for a bachelorette weekend with her friends. This place is gorgeous, but this pool situation is a vibe killer. Huh, tell me about it. I told my boss this was a job for the pros, but here I am, playing lifeguard and janitor. She grinned. You're doing great, though. Heroic, even. Yeah, real heroic, I said, rolling my eyes. Me versus the swamp monsters. We bantered like that for a while, her teasing me about my net-wielding skills, me firing back about her questionable taste in swim spots. It was easy, fun, the kind of flirtation that makes a shitty day bearable. Then she sat up, kicked off her sandals, and said, "Screw it. I just want to dip my legs in. It's too hot to just sit here." I shrugged. Your funeral. She slid to the edge of the pool, dangling her feet in the water, and let out a contented sigh. See? Not so bad. I went back to scooping. But something caught my eye. The water near her feet was moving. Weirdly. Not like ripples from her splashing, but like something was swimming. Small, dark shapes, maybe a dozen darting through the murk. My stomach dropped. Yo, Lauren, get up. I said, my voice tight. She looked at me, eyebrows raised. What? Get out! Now! I was shouting now, dropping the net and rushing toward her. She scrambled up, confused, as I pointed at the water. There, clustering near the wall where her feet had been, were these things. They were small, maybe 3 inches long, with segmented bodies, too many legs, and pincers that looked like they meant business. Centipedes or some kind of nightmare water bugs, squirming and writhing like they were pissed she'd left. Lauren's eyes went wide. What the f*** are those? She yelled. I don't know, but I'm not dealing with this shit, I said, my heart pounding. She grabbed her towel and bolted, sandals forgotten, probably back to her room to have a full-on meltdown. I didn't blame her. Those things were straight out of a horror movie. I marched to the office, my shirt soaked with sweat and my nerves frayed. Rick, get out here, I said, bursting through the door. You need to see this. He groaned, but followed me back to the pool. I pointed at the water, where the creepy bastards were still milling around. What the hell are those? He muttered, leaning closer. Don't ask me, man. I told you this was above my pay grade. Call Tony or you deal with it. I'm done. Rick, to his credit, didn't argue this time. He grabbed a wrench and pried open one of the pool filters, probably thinking that he'd find a clogged pipe or something. What he found was worse. Inside the filter, trapped in the slimy mesh, were at least 15 more of those wriggling, leggy monsters. Some were bigger, their bodies glistening like they had been living in there for weeks. Rick gagged, slamming the filter shut. Jesus Christ, I'm calling Tony. Tony showed up an hour later, a grizzled guy in his 50s who looked like he had seen every pool-related horror show. He took one look at the water, then at the filter, and shook his head. Relax, guys. These are just water scorpions. Not actual scorpions, but bad enough. They're aquatic insects, predatory, probably got swept in during the storms. They like murky water, and this pool's a buffet for them. Can they hurt people? I asked. They bite. Not deadly, but it'll ruin your day. Your girl's lucky she got out when she did. I spent the rest of the day helping Tony drain the pool and scrub it down. But the image of those things swarming toward Lauren's feet was burned into my brain. It was the kind of thing you didn't unsee, no matter how many beers you drank after your shift. The hotel comped Lauren's group a free night, and I saw her the next day at the bar, looking shaken but still stunning in a sundress. She spotted me and waved me over. You saved my life, you know, she said, half-jokingly, sipping a mojito. Hardly, I said, sliding onto the stool next to her. Just didn't want you to lose a toe to those creepy scorpions. She laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it. I'm never swimming in a hotel pool again. Like, ever. Can't blame ya, I said. I'm thinking about sticking to mopping floors from now on.
I was 16, glued to the TV in our living room, controller in hand, deep into a FIFA match against some online rival from God knows where. It was a Saturday, well, technically Sunday morning by then, around 3 a.m. The house was dead quiet, except for the occasional cheer from the virtual crowd on the screen. My sister Emily, who was 14 at the time, had a crash out on the couch next to me. She'd been watching me play earlier, trash-talking my skills, but eventually nodded off with her head tilted back, mouth slightly open, like she always did. Dad was in his room down the hall, snoring away after a long shift at the warehouse. And then there was Whiskers, our lazy tabby cat, curled up on the armrest like a furry sentinel. Nobody else in the house, just us in our split little suburban home. I was mid-game sweating it out in extra time when I heard this weird crunching sound coming from the kitchen. It was to my left, just through the open doorway. Sounded exactly like the ice maker in the fridge dumping a fresh batch into the bin. I paused for a second, glanced over, but the kitchen was dark, and I figured that it was just ice. No big deal. Houses make noises at night, right? creaks, pops, and the occasional thumps from the AC kicking on. So I just shook it off. I jumped so hard, I dropped the controller. My heart slammed against my ribs. "What the f***?" I muttered under my breath, whipping my head around. The living room was still dim, lit only by the TV's glow, and Emily was right there, still asleep. Whiskers hadn't even flinched. Dad's door was shut, no movement from his room. But that crash, it came from the front entryway. My mind raced. Is it burglar? Window breaking? Some psycho smashing in? Emily stirred then, probably from the noise or my freakout. Her eyes fluttered open, and she sat up. "Jake, what was that?" "I don't know, it sounded like something shattered. Stay here." She blinked at me, wide-eyed now. "No way. What if it's someone breaking in?" I hesitated. She had a point. We weren't little kids anymore, but in that moment, I felt like it. I grabbed the nearest thing I could pass for a weapon, a pair of those big kitchen scissors from the coffee table. My mom used to keep it in a drawer with the rest of her crafting stuff before she left us last year. Yeah, Mom bailed on us after the divorce and went off to Florida with her new boyfriend, leaving Dad to handle everything. It sucked, but we got used to it. Anyway, scissors in hand, I felt a tiny bit braver. Emily insisted on coming, so I handed her another pair, the little sewing ones, but sharp enough. "Okay, fine, but stay behind me," I said. "Okay, but if it's a robber, I'm stabbing first," she replied, trying to sound tough, but her voice was a little cracked. We both laughed nervously. That sibling thing where you joke over to cover fear. We crept down the short hallway, hearts pounding, peering around corners like we were in some dumb horror movie. The front room was pitch black, but as we got closer, I could see shards glinting on the floor under the moonlight from the window. I flipped on the light switch with my elbow, scissors raised like an idiot knight. And there it was, the glass desk by the front door, the one Dad picked up cheap at a garage sale years ago, completely shattered. The top was gone, just jagged edges around the metal frame, and the old iMac that sat on it had plummeted. Glass everywhere, big chunks, tiny slivers, sparkling like deadly confetti. "Holy shit," Emily breathed, stepping closer, but stopping when I held my arm out. "Don't move. You'll cut your feet. We're both barefoot, you idiot." She shook her head, scanning the room. "No one's here. The door's locked. Windows too. Whiskers?" The cat was still on the couch, not a care in the world. No earthquake. We would have felt that. No sign of anyone forcing entry, and it was just like the desk decided to explode. Spontaneous combustion or something. I poked a shard with my toe. Wow, this is messed up. Emily crouched down, peering at the mess. Remember that story Aunt Karen told about her mirror cracking for no reason? Said it was a bad omen. I rolled my eyes. Aunt Karen's full of shit. Probably just old glass, stressed or something. But deep down, I was spooked. Our house wasn't haunted or anything. At least, I didn't think so. It was built in the 80s. Nothing creepy about it. We stood there for a minute, whispering theories. Maybe temperature, cold night, hot computer, Emily suggested. Nah, the iMac wasn't even on. "We gotta go get Dad." She nodded. "Yeah, he's gonna flip." We padded back to his room, knocking softly at first, then louder. Dad, something happened." He grumbled awake, door creaking open, his hair all messed up, and his old boxers and tee. "What, Jake? Oh, it's 3 in the damn morning." "The desk in the front room, it just shattered," I said, trying to sound calm. He stared at us, blinking. "What do you mean shattered?" "Like it exploded. Glass everywhere." Dad rubbed his eyes, muttering a curse. "Did you kids break it? Horseplay or something?" No, Dad, I swear to God, we were in the living room. Jake was playing video games and I was asleep. We heard the crash and went to check. No one's there. He sighed heavy, like the weight of the world. Since Mom left, he'd been carrying everything. Bills, the kids, house. All right, show me. We let him back and he surveyed the damage. Jesus, that's a mess. You sure nothing hit it? The cat didn't jump on it? Whiskers was with us, and he's too fat to jump that high. Dad chuckled despite himself. Yeah, poor guy's more pillow than predator these days. He knelt down, careful of the glass. Weird. Tempered glass can do that sometimes. Spontaneous breakage, but... I don't know. Emily crossed her arms. So it's not a ghost? He shot her a look. No ghost, Em. Just bad luck. I could tell that he was unsettled too. Go back to bed, both of you. I'll handle this in the morning. There's school tomorrow, so... Oh wait, no, it's Sunday. Still, go to bed. We protested a bit. Can we help? Emily asked. But he waved us off. No, I'll just clean it first thing in the morning. Back in the living room, Emily and I couldn't sleep. We sat on the couch whispering. That was scary as hell, she admitted. I thought for sure it was a burglar. Me too. I felt like my balls were in my throat. She punched my arm lightly. Gross, Jake. But yeah, remember when Mom used to say the house had character? Maybe she meant poltergeists. Mom said a lot of things, like how she said she'd always be there for us. Yeah, she said softly. It's bad she left, but we got Dad and each other. True. We fist bumped that corny sibling ritual we had. Eventually she dozed off again, and I tried to finish my game, but my mind was elsewhere, staring at the screen. I kept glancing back towards the front door, half expecting another crash. Years later, Emily and I still joke about it over beers when we visit Dad. Remember that exploding desk, she'd say? And we'd laugh, recounting the scissor-wielding adventure. It's become kind of a bit of a family lore.
I hated my job. It was at a consulting firm, and my boss, Lawrence, made my life miserable. He was one of those "the customer is always right" bosses, which meant that he always gave our clients these unrealistic promises, and when we couldn't deliver, he'd dock our pay. It was awful. Last summer, I started job searching. It took a while, but I found the perfect job at the perfect company. I'd be doing the same tasks for double the pay. More importantly, the company promised that I'd never work overtime and they'd never dock my pay. The company itself had a stellar reputation, especially compared to where I currently worked. I did a couple of Zoom calls with my future bosses and they liked me a lot. They told me that the job was mine as long as I came to their office for an in-person interview. It was just a formality. I cannot tell you how excited I was. I went straight to Lawrence's office and handed him my letter of resignation. He took one look at it and smirked at me. God, I hated him. You didn't list a reason for leaving. Is it because you finally realized that you're not good at your job? He only said that to goad me. He knew that this was his last chance to make my life miserable. Well, I wasn't going to take it anymore. I silently walked toward his door and pushed it open so that everyone on the floor could hear me, and then I walked back to his table. You make impossible promises to clients just to look good, and then you blame us when we can't meet them. You dock our pay for your screw-ups. You humiliate people in meetings. You act like a dictator instead of a leader. I've worked late nights fixing your mistakes. I've watched good people quit because of you. You've turned this company into a toxic pit, and we all know it. If the CEO had any idea what really goes on here, you'd be out the door. Are you finished? No, but my throat is. You'll be back. No one will hire you with that attitude. You're wrong. I told him about my new job, making sure that he knew I was going to the company's biggest competitor. That was a mistake. His face went blank and he told me to leave. Security guards had to escort me out. I didn't get to clear out my desk or say anything to my coworkers who were all staring at me. I was stripped of my ID card and locked out of the building. I felt wonderful, though. I kept thinking about Lawrence's expression as his guards dragged me away. I knew he couldn't hurt me anymore, but he sure looked like he was planning something. My in-person interview at my new company was the next day. I got up early, wore my nicest outfit, and got in my car. It wouldn't start. I'd never had car problems before. I looked under the hood and I noticed that some wires had been cut. I don't know anything about cars, but it was obvious that someone had messed with the engine. All I could think was that Lawrence was trying to mess with me. I'd figure it out later, though. I had to get to that interview on time. I tried to order an Uber, but my account was suspended. Was that Lawrence, too? Getting desperate, I hurried to the bus station at the end of my street. It had been years since I needed to take the bus. The driver was a young guy. He seemed nice, and he let me pay in cash, even though my city makes passengers use an app instead. I asked him how long it would take to get to my destination on the other side of town. He said 40 minutes, which gave me plenty of time. I sat in one of the front seats and I relaxed. Everything was going to be okay. We sped through the city, picking up about a dozen passengers. But by the halfway point, the driver took a call on his cell. I couldn't hear what he said, but he sounded really happy. He ended the call, drove another block, and parked. He wasn't even at a bus stop. We were in an industrial area next to a bunch of sketchy-looking warehouses. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Sit tight. We're going to have a 5-minute delay. He hurried out of the bus without any other explanation. I waited 5 minutes, but he still wasn't back. The other passengers were getting antsy. A few of them left. After 10 minutes, I called my new job to tell them the situation. The call didn't go through. We were in a total dead zone. No reception, no Wi-Fi. I was nervous, but I was mostly angry at the driver. I looked around and I saw that all the other passengers had given up and left, except for me and a homeless lady in the back. She didn't look like she was in a hurry. I stormed out of the bus and walked toward the alley where the driver had gone. He was sitting on an old tire, smoking a cigarette and playing a game on his phone. What the hell is going on? Sorry, just 15 more minutes. Smoke break. I controlled my anger as much as I could, and I demanded that he get back on the bus. He checked the time on his phone, shrugged, and then slowly walked back. I was seething in my seat as he continued the drive. I could tell that he was going slower than before. I wasn't sure, but I think he was taking extra turns, too. It was like we were driving in circles, always in the industrial area. I kept checking my phone, but we were still in the dead zone. Finally, he got onto a main road. But instead of continuing, he pulled into a gas station. Sorry again. Just give me a couple minutes. I finally got reception again. I saw a bunch of notifications flood in. I'd check those later. For now, I had to call my new job. My future boss didn't answer. He replied with a text. The position has been filled. Our company values punctuality. I looked up at the driver, the source of all my problems, and he was still sitting in his seat. He hadn't even gotten up yet. I had no doubt in my mind that he was doing this on purpose. And with my blocked Uber account and my messed up car, it had to be related. It was Lawrence. He was behind all this. Some elaborate scheme to stop me from working with their competitors. I jumped up out of my seat and I rushed to the driver. He looked up at me, a blank smile on his face. And I couldn't control myself. I punched him in the neck. He was too surprised to block me. "Why are you doing this?" He begged me to stop. I grabbed his shoulders and I shook him until he told me the truth. "A guy, he paid me $5,000. The homeless lady in the back of the bus was screaming. I ran out of there before the police showed up. I ended up hiding out behind the gas station, wondering what I was going to do. I didn't have a job. My ex-boss was sabotaging my life. I just punched a stranger, which was definitely a crime. After catching my breath, I pulled out my phone. More notifications were coming in. A lot more. Dude, you're famous! You're my hero. I read through a flood of messages from literally everyone I knew. Once I realized my situation, my hope came back, and I finally understood why Lawrence had gone to such lengths to sabotage me. One of my ex-coworkers had filmed my little freak-out yesterday, and it had gone viral. Without realizing it, I had exposed all of Lawrence's cruel, unethical, and often illegal actions at my old company. The video was everywhere, and tons of other employees were vouching for me. I spent an hour reading through all the comments, until I noticed an email from the CEO of the company. He wanted to meet with me personally. This all happened 2 months ago. My new job didn't work out, but I'm back at my old company again. I have Lawrence's job. This story has been loosely inspired from a real-world event. On the morning of July 8, 2025, a man boarded a bus in Lorton, Virginia, and abruptly punched the driver in the face before fleeing the scene. The assault occurred just before 7:30 a.m. near Gunston Cove Road and Cranford Street, while the driver was following his regular route. Surveillance footage captured the suspect wearing a purple hoodie, black do-rag, and a backpack. Fairfax County Police responded swiftly, but the attacker had already escaped. The injured driver was transported to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Authorities released images of the suspect and requested public assistance in identifying him. That Halloween night 5 years ago still haunts me. We lived in a quiet Chicago suburb. My parents, Mom and Dad, lived across town in their house. Mom's arthritis had worsened, making daily tasks a struggle, and Dad, at 72, was her rock, stubborn and spry. My husband, Tom, and I had been married 8 years. Things weren't perfect. His sales job kept him away, and my nursing shifts at the hospital drained me. We didn't have kids, which stung, but we were trying. It was around 8 p.m., the air sharp with the scent of bonfires and candy. Our porch sported fake cobwebs and jack-o'-lanterns that Tom had carved poorly. "Check this out," he'd said that morning, pointing at a pumpkin with a lopsided smirk. "Supposed to be terrifying, but it's more like a drunk uncle." I forced a smile. Things felt strained lately. Little fights, silences. I was in the living room, refilling the candy bowl when the doorbell rang. Tom, munching a Twix, stood up. "I got it," he said. No trick-or-treat followed. Just an odd quiet. "What the hell?" Tom muttered. I peeked out and saw a man on our porch, a burlap sack over his head with eye holes cut out, like some horror movie creep. He stood silent, then stepped forward, like he was walking right in. Tom's face hardened. "Back off!" he yelled, shoving the guy hard. The figure stumbled, arms flailing, and fell backward off the step. His head hit the concrete with a sickening crack. "Tom, what did you do?" I screamed, dropping the candy bowl. M&Ms scattered like confetti. I ran outside as Tom stood frozen, hand still out. "He was coming in! I thought he was some nutcase!" I yanked off the sack, and there was Dad's face. "Oh, God! Dad!" I cried, checking his pulse. It was weak. "Call 911, Tom! Now!" The ambulance lights lit up the street. Neighbors gawked. "Was it a break-in?" one whispered. "No, it was my dad, pulling a stupid prank." Dad loved pranks. As a kid, I'd find fake snakes in my backpack, or he'd jump out in a vampire mask. "Keeps things fun," he'd say, winking. I should have known it was him, but that bag, that silence, it was too much. In the ER, I paced, calling Mom. "Emily, what's happened?" she asked, voice shaky. "Dad's hurt bad, Mom. He fell. We're at the hospital." She arrived, hobbling on her cane, her face pale. "He said he was going to scare you, too. I told him it was foolish." The doctor's words were a gut punch. Severe traumatic brain injury. Skull fracture. Brain bleed. He may not recover fully. Mom clutched my hand, sobbing. "My George, he just wanted to make you laugh." Dad woke up, but he wasn't Dad. He slurred words, couldn't walk, needed constant care. Mom, with her arthritis and diabetes, couldn't manage him alone in their house. They'd always been a team, Dad cooking, Mom gardening. Now, that was gone. Tom tried to help, driving Mom to the hospital, but I couldn't look at him without seeing Dad's fall. It was an accident, Tom said one night, his voice low over dinner. I didn't know it was him. You pushed too hard. You always do. Like that bar fight last year. Punching that guy for nothing. He was coming at us. What was I supposed to do? Let some creep walk in? Think for 1 second. You broke my family. We tried to make it work. I'd visit Mom and Dad daily, watching Mom struggle to feed him, her hands trembling. I can't do this alone, Emily, she said, tears in her eyes. He doesn't even know me half the time. I know, Mom. We'll figure it out. We didn't. Dad needed full-time care, and Mom's health was failing. I found them a spot at Willow Creek Convalescent Center, a sterile place with faded curtains and overworked staff. Dad sat in a wheelchair, staring blankly. Mom held his hand, talking about old times. Remember our lake house, George? You caught that big trout. I'd ask the nurse how's he today. Stable, but no real change. Stable. Like that meant anything. Tom kept trying. I'll pay for better care, he offered one night, handing me flowers. I'm so sorry, Emily. Sorry doesn't fix it, I said, tossing the flowers on the counter. Every time I see you, I see him falling. Why can't you forgive me? Tom asked, slamming a cabinet. I was protecting you because you destroyed us. Get out. I filed for divorce a month later. It was quick, no kids, just a house we sold. I moved to a small apartment near the hospital, closer to Mom and Dad. Friends tried to help. It wasn't Tom's fault, my friend Chia said over coffee. Your dad's prank went too far. He should have waited, I said, stirring my latte. He's always been reckless. Mom died 2 years later, her heart giving out. Love you, sweetie, she whispered, her last words. Dad lingered another year, unaware, until pneumonia took him. I was alone, 42, with a job and an empty apartment. I have been dating a bit, but nothing has worked out yet.
I joined a local gaming group because I thought it would be fun and an easy way to meet people. I wasn't much of a gamer, but I just needed some friends. I was new in town and finding it hard to put myself out there. It seemed fun at first. There were 3 other guys in the group, and they were all super friendly. Lance, the game master, really took me under his wing. He was patient with me when I made mistakes, and he helped me learn all the complicated rules. It was a role-playing game, where we all built personas and went on mini adventures. Fantasy stuff. I won't go into details. Anyway, I was with that group for a couple weeks before I realized that they were way more into it than I was. It felt a little culty. And one night, whenever I canceled last minute to catch up on some work, the group literally came to my house and forced me to play right in my living room. I couldn't say no. I tried to quit multiple times after that, but Lance wouldn't let me. He said that my character was integral to their quest, but the real reason was that he didn't want to lose control over me. Slowly, this game took over my life. Lance increased our meetings to almost every day, and no one could leave until we achieved whatever made-up objectives he made for us. Most of the time, we spent all night playing. None of the other players had full-time jobs like I did, so they could only sleep during the daytime. And with my schedule, I could barely function. I think Lance wanted me to be sleep-deprived. I was more controllable that way. Eventually, I just gave in. It was like Stockholm Syndrome. I started to get obsessed with the game, as everyone else. Once that happened, Lance started something called an outreach program. We need more members, and it's up to you to find them. Don't disappoint me. Because I have zero social life outside the group, I struggled to do it. I'd lost the ability to have a normal conversation. I went to a couple bars to recruit, but everyone avoided me. Of course they did. I sounded like a psychopath, babbling on about hit points and made-up creatures. Somehow, all the other members managed to recruit someone. Our group was now at 7, and since I was the only member who failed on my mission, Lance made me buy new player figurines for all the members. I agreed because I was brainwashed, but those things were at least $500 each. I didn't have that much money. My work had already decreased my hours because of my poor performance. I left work early the next day to go to the game store, still exhausted. I had a list of all the figurines that Lance wanted. I would buy as many of them as I could afford and hope that Lance would be happy. The girl who worked at the store was named Nancy. I had met her before, right after I moved into town. I didn't think she'd recognize me, but she totally did. "Zian, what happened to you? You look awful." I did look awful, even though I didn't realize at the time. I didn't answer her question. I just told her what I came there for. I needed everything they had in stock for the game. When I told her the name of the game, her eyes widened. "You know that's a cult, right?" She sat me down and asked me a bunch of questions. We talked for an hour. She even put the close sign on the door so we wouldn't be disturbed. She knew I needed help. She was insistent. She made me keep repeating all the things I'd been pushed to do. And as I said everything out loud, I finally realized how messed our gaming group actually was. Nancy held my hand in support as I called Lance and told him I was done. We both knew that if I tried to see him in person, he would try to trick me to come back. Surprisingly, he didn't seem upset. "Sorry to hear that, man. We'll miss you." A huge weight was lifted off my shoulders, all thanks to Nancy. She told me to go home and get some sleep. I needed it. She would call me the next day, and she made it seem like she was interested, like she wanted to see me again. So when I went back home, I passed out. I had the best sleep of my life, but then something woke me in the middle of the night. I felt hands grab me. I heard voices. I was too groggy to see what was going on, but it looked like a dozen people had snuck into my house. And before I knew it, I was in my living room, my arms and legs tied to a chair, fully awake now. I saw the entire gaming group in my house, rifling through my stuff. Lance stood right in front of me. "You didn't complete your mission, Zian. We can't let you go until you do." My mission was to buy a bunch of stupid toys for this stupid game. How could I do that when I was tied up like this? Pretty soon I knew what he meant. I watched Lance dig through my wallet, and the others start taking all my belongings out the front door. They were robbing me of everything I had. I screamed for them to stop. There had to be at least one gamer who knew that this was wrong, but it didn't work. All of them were just as brainwashed as I was. And honestly, if I didn't meet Nancy, I probably would have stolen a bunch of stuff too. Lance got on my laptop and asked for all of my banking information. He was going to special order all of the deluxe figurines. When I didn't tell him, he slapped me until I gave in. I was tied up for an entire day. No food, no water. And once all my belongings were cleared out, everyone left. But Lance didn't. He stayed behind to make sure I wasn't hiding anything from him. I was dizzy, dehydrated, and so angry, but too weak to free myself. Then there was a knock at the door. It wasn't the gaming group's secret knock, just a normal one. My heart raced. Someone was here to help me. Lance shoved duct tape over my mouth and dragged me into the side of the room. Then he opened the door just a little. "What the hell did you do to him?" It was Nancy, and for a second, I was scared for her safety. Lance was capable of anything, and if he could control a dozen men, she stood no chance. But I was very wrong. Nancy pushed the door open and punched Lance right in the nose before he could do anything. Knocked him out cold. Then she ran towards me and tore off the duct tape. That's the guy you're afraid of? With Lance bleeding and moaning on the floor, looking so pathetic and weak, we called the police. The gaming group was over, and I haven't played any games since.
Over a month ago, I went to Idaho to meet my boyfriend Robbie's family for the first time. Robbie had grown up in a really small town, though he didn't act like it at all. He acted like all our other city friends, so when he invited me, I assumed his hometown would be a mid-sized city with plenty to do. I was very wrong. The whole town had just a couple thousand people, and it was also spread out with endless flat fields. I always loved traveling, but this was the first place I'd visited that genuinely creeped me out. As we drove through the town's one main road, Robbie excitedly gave me a tour of everything we passed. I couldn't believe it. He was actually excited to be back here. He wasn't embarrassed or anything. We parked in front of his childhood home, and his parents ran out to greet us. They seemed like really nice, warm people. Robbie had already told them a lot about me, so they asked me a bunch of questions about my work and my family. It was very pleasant. After settling in, I realized that I had forgot to bring my allergy medication. I'm extremely allergic to cats, and Robbie's mom Catherine had 3 cats. I asked Catherine if she had any medicine I could borrow, but she told me that I'd have to run to the store. That's when I found out that everyone in this town shopped exclusively at Walmart. That's why they called it the store. It was literally the only store in the area. I asked Robbie to go with me, but he was so excited to catch up with his parents. I ended up taking his car and driving myself there. I know it's weird to admit, but even though I was in my late 20s, I'd never actually been in a Walmart before. I always preferred places like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods instead. I thought of Walmart as the kind of place that poor people went to. But I was pleasantly surprised when I entered. It was a modern, clean building with pretty much everything a person would need. The old woman who greeted me seemed really nice, and the cashiers and customers all smiled when they saw me. I guess they didn't see a lot of new faces. I went to the pharmacy section and got the medicine I needed. Then I got some wine to bring back to Robbie's parents. As I was checking out, the cashier engaged in a bit of small talk. She asked about what brought me to Idaho. I told them I was meeting my in-laws for the first time. She smiled, welcoming me to the area. Then I mentioned Robbie's name, and the woman's expression instantly hardened. "You're staying with the Carpenters?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Catherine and Bob Carpenter. I'm dating their son." The woman looked around the room, making sure that no one heard me. Then, she printed out my receipt and wrote something on it before she placed it in one of my bags. I thanked her and left. When I got back in the car, I pulled out my receipt to see what she'd written. It was a single sentence at the bottom of the paper. "They're in a cult." As I drove back to Robbie's house, I had no idea what to do. Was this some kind of small-town joke that locals played on outsiders? Or was she serious? I didn't know my in-laws well enough to ask them, but I trusted Robbie enough to talk to him about it. I parked my car and walked inside with my medicine and wine. Catherine greeted me at the door, saying that I was just in time for brunch. Robbie and his dad were already sitting at the table. They looked up and smiled at me. With the note still on my mind, I started to see the house in a new light. The walls were covered with family photos, but they were framed paintings of weird symbols. A huge painting just above the dinner table showed a witch being burnt at the stake. The whole place suddenly seemed cultish. I sat down at the table, pretending that everything was okay. I guess I didn't do a good job though, because Robbie asked me what was wrong. His parents both stared at me, waiting for an answer. I asked Robbie if I could talk to him in private. He laughed and said, "Sure, after we eat." The food looked pretty normal, but if it were poisoned or something, I wouldn't be able to tell. My plate was already filled with food. Just in case, I turned to Robbie and asked, "Actually, I know this is weird, but can we switch places? It looks like yours has more mashed potatoes." Catherine reached for the bowl of potatoes, ready to serve me more, but I ignored her and swapped my plate for Robbie's. If they wanted to poison me, I wasn't going to take any chances. Robbie gave me a strange look, but he didn't say anything. When he started eating from the plate that was originally meant for me, I knew that there wasn't any poison involved. I had just let the cashier's weird warning go to my head. I started eating too. Everything tasted normal. Then Catherine stood up, holding up her champagne. "Let's have a toast." I started to worry that there was something wrong with my drink. We clinked glasses and drank at the same time, but I kept my lips closed so that I didn't swallow anything. Robbie's parents looked at me suspiciously, but they didn't say anything. After the meal was over, I helped Catherine clean up. Then I pulled Robbie aside and showed him what the cashier had written. I thought he would laugh and say it was all some small town joke. That's what I hoped would happen. Instead, he got this really disappointed look and said, "Well, crap, you caught us." Then he shouted for his parents to enter in the room. They hurried in. "What is it, son?" his father asked. "She knows," he told them. Then he looked right at me. This should have been easy. All you had to do was drink your champagne and everything would be easy. But no, you had to ask questions. "What's going on?" Before Robbie could answer, his parents raced forward and grabbed my arms to hold me still. Then Robbie left for the kitchen. He came back with another glass of champagne. "I'm sorry, babe, it's not your fault. But we need to fill our sacrifice quota for the season. Just open up your mouth and it'll be fast." He pushed the glass against my lips and tried to pour it into my mouth. He pinched my nose so that I couldn't breathe, and his parents held me so hard that I couldn't twist out of the way. "Just drink it," he screamed into my face. He never talked to me like that before. All the time we'd spent together, it was all a lie. He was never really my boyfriend. He was just playing a long con, lowering my defenses so he could take me back to his hometown and sacrifice me to whatever messed up religion they found. I opened up my mouth to breathe, and that's when he started pouring the champagne down my throat. It filled my mouth, but I refused to swallow. I started choking. His parents squeezed me tighter. My choking got worse, and Robbie pulled the glass away from my mouth. I spat out everything I could. Then he tried again, this time more forcefully. I guess the fear of death took over me. I couldn't move my body, so I slammed my head forward, knocking the glass out of his hand. It shattered on the floor, spilling the champagne onto the carpet. His parents, surprised by my sudden movement, loosened their grip. I shoved them out of the way and raced for the door. As they chased after me, I ran to Robbie's car and locked myself inside. Thankfully, I still had Robbie's keys in my pocket. All three of them pounded on the car door, screaming for me to come out. I turned on the ignition and drove out of there. Thanks to Robbie's quick tour of the town, I remembered where the police station was. I drove straight there, ready to report the attempted poisoning. A policeman greeted me, but I noticed the same symbols on his office wall that were in Robbie's house. He was part of the cult too. I guess a lot of the town was. That was why the cashier had to write me a note instead of telling me directly. She didn't know who was listening in. The policeman asked me what was wrong. I told him never mind, and then I left. I drove all the way back to Boise, the nearest big city, where I went to a real police station to report what happened. The cop wrote everything down and said he'd look into it. I'm still waiting for answers. It's been over a month and I haven't heard anything from Robbie or his family. I'm in constant fear that they'll come after me to finish their sacrifice. But if they do, I'm going to be ready.